between the President and the leaders of the political parties who form part of the GNU, that there's going to be a 2% increase in VAT. So that was not correct.
So you were not consulted?
No, not on the 2%. We were consulted on the budget. You must remember, you must understand the budget process. There were previous presentations from the Minister of Finance on the budget, but that was on the division of the budget in terms of certain departments and what amounts they get. So that process was still followed. It was only this matter that's actually the contentious issue. And therefore, it is further proof that such an incident or such decision or such proposal in itself could say, let's stop this process.
But would you support this 2% VAT increase proposal?
No, I'm on record. I say that there are other...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kumbuzon Chabeni, the Minister in the Presidency and Spokesperson of Cabinet. We have convened this media briefing because as Cabinet we have not finalized the budget, and therefore we could not proceed to the House for the Minister of Finance to table the budget. We had a slight delay because the elevators were not working for the Minister to come down. So that's why the reason for the slight delay. And I'll then hand over to the Minister of Finance, Minister Enoch Godongwane Madiba, to read out the statement, and then we'll take the questions.
Okay, I'm not used to reading statements this time, so that I should not go out of the text. I'm going to read the statement. The annual budget is tabled by the Minister of Finance, but it requires the deliberations of the Cabinet before it is tabled in the National Assembly. Cabinet considered that although the tabling of the 2025 budget was scheduled for release at 2 p.m. on the 19th of February, a postponement is needed to allow for further deliberations to take place on the budget. Cabinet is united in the view that the budget must strike a balance between the interests of the public, economic growth, and fiscal sustainability. Furthermore, budget is produced and presented before the National Assembly according to rules outlined in the Public Finance Management Act. Section 27 of the Public Finance Management Act requires that the annual budget be tabled prior to the start of the financial year or, in exceptional circumstances, on a date as soon as possible after the start of the financial year, as the Minister of Finance may determine. Therefore, further discussion in Cabinet will take place in preparation for a new or amended budget to be tabled on the 12th of March 2025. That's your next date for the new budget.
Thank you, Minister. I'll now take the questions from the floor. I'm going to see the number of hands, and then we'll determine whether we're doing 1 or 2 rounds. And then in terms of procedure, you'll have to indicate your name, the media house where you come from, and then we will then field your question. Let me start here, and then go. The 2 hands up there. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 hands. Okay. Stand there.
Good afternoon. My name is Tepi Lefede with Bloomberg News. Minister, at what point did it become apparent during your consultation that there was not consensus on this budget? And if there is not consensus again by the 12th of March, what then becomes the next steps? Thank you.
Next hand. Mike.
Business report. I just wanted to know, is it normal to hold a cabinet meeting just before the budget every year, or could it have been held a bit earlier?
The next hand.
Minister, can you confirm whether the 2% VAT hike was the only point of contention, or were there other points as well?
Yes, sir.
So, what kind of impact will this have in terms of how you engage with the international investors and bond holders? And obviously, it's something that we were anticipating that would happen.
There's a lady there.
SABC. Minister, earlier on when we were here, you indicated that there's no consensus from the cabinet. It has not been approved by the cabinet. Why did you have to take such a risk?
And one man look okay.
No. Let me protect you and you ask the question. The minister is going to only deal with the responses after you've asked.
Why, Minister, did you have to take such a risk considering the expenses involved in this process? Is that not a fruitless expenditure considering the limited resources that Treasury has?
Ma'am, before you go, what risk in relation to what?
In relation to the postponement of the budget. The risk of not, when he was here earlier on, he said the budget has not been approved by cabinet. So I'm asking, why did he have to take such a risk of coming and presenting a budget that has not been approved by cabinet, as per his words? He said in the past it used to be approved before he presents. Thanks.
No, you didn't have your hand up. I didn't see your hand.
From ENCA. The DA has already released a statement suggesting that it couldn't agree with the ANC when it comes to the 2% VAT increase. Did the DA force your hand to postpone the budget, Minister? And is then the GNU safe? Is the country safe in the hands of the GNU?
The minister will respond, and then I'll clarify the ones that he doesn't respond to.
The DA one. At what point? Difficult question, because you never anticipate this stuff. It relates to the second question, for instance, somebody, is it normal? The answer is yes, because some of the information is market sensitive. Because of that nature, we normally give an indication. For instance, 2 weeks ago, we went to Cabinet and gave an indication. Precisely because of the market sensitivity of some of the issues, we didn't put some of these issues on the table. And then we normally put it early in the morning. The unfortunate thing today, that's why we didn't start early, is because the president was not around, so we started late. So it's normal to do that. Was the 2% the normal contention?
The only.
Huh?
Was the 2% the only contention?
Yeah, contentious issue. You can't have the 2% alone without talking about what's going to replace it, and that does not become contentious. What I'm trying to say, what we are grappling with, is not necessarily the 2% per se. What we are grappling with, given the challenges and priorities that we are facing, how do we fund them? Really, that's the debate. Do we borrow more? What are the implications of that? Do we continue cutting expenditure? What are the implications of that? Do we raise tax? What are the implications of that? There's general agreement that in the current environment, we need to find a way of funding our priorities. The debate is what is the best way of doing it? And give the bonds to Duncan and give you, Minister, the remaining one. Bond.
Thanks, Minister.
We don't talk to board holders, you guys talk to them.
Yes. Thank you, Minister. So typically what would have happened today, what typically would have happened is that we would have had a global investor call after the budget with our domestic and foreign investors. And then there would have been some engagement over the next few days, mainly with the domestic investors, followed by a foreign roadshow. Of course, if the budget has been postponed to the 12th of March, all of those engagements will now shift until after and on the 12th of March, as per our normal practice. We will, of course, consider releasing a statement more broadly after this. But some of the key areas of communication that would have already gone out to some of our bondholders around, for example, what would happen to auction levels, that communication has already gone out, and that communication is important to go out. So there are some areas of communication that have already happened, and it's important that that goes out. In terms of the broader fiscal framework, there will have to be a re-engagement on the 12th of March when the new fiscal framework is tabled.
On the question of the DA having released a statement claiming that they forced the ANC hand, I think all of you followed Minister Mackenzie when he was replying in Parliament. And in his reply, I think he succinctly clarified it was neither a DA issue, an ANC issue, a PA issue, or a DA versus ANC, or a PA versus ANC, or IFP versus ANC. It was a cabinet decision. And let me clarify, in cabinet we have a sitting order. So the older ministers sit first. So it means when you are raising hands, it will be the ANC ministers who will raise their hands and speak first. And the focus of the discussion is not about party politics. It's about what is the balance that we need to achieve between managing our fiscal framework, managing our ability to protect the interest of South Africans in general and the poor at outmost. How do we deal with the inequality that confronts all of us? So it's never a GA ANC issue. It's a collective cabinet decision. And the minister, you raised the question of why did the minister take a risk? And he has explained, he didn't take a risk. Ordinarily we do it that way, to manage the market sensitivity. So it's not something new. Before he goes to the MTDPS, he's going to come on that morning and give us the issues. But there are continuous consultations that happen. But bottom line, at the end of the day, Treasury must balance the books, must make sure there's money that's available, and in balancing the books, they'll then have to say, in terms of what Cabinet has proposed in the previous engagement, what does the reality say? And then the minister has covered what the issues to say. How do you then plug the gap that we have in the fiscals? Do we borrow more? Do we do what are the other things that we do? So there are two more hands that I've seen, which will be my last round. Can I have all hands up? I'm going to start with you. And then you follow. Yeah, there's no follow-ups. Can I have the hands that are up? Let's have the hands up, don't threaten to raise the hand. Raise the hand, please. You're starting, she follows, you follow, and then there's the lady right at the back, you are number 4, and the lady at the front, number 5, number 6. Ma'am with the camera, please sit down so that I can see everybody. Number 7, number 8, and number 9. That's the last round.
Minister.
Hello?
Please note we also have Pretoria.
How many people in Pretoria?
Three people in Pretoria.
So let's do this. We've got 7 hands here. You are going to guide me on the 3 in Pretoria. So we'll take the first 5 here, respond to them, and then the last 3, is it 2 here, and then we'll go to Pretoria for the last 3, and then we finish. So it's 3 rounds of questions. Thank you.
Hi, Minister. Mamalo Ngenze here from EWN. Just quickly follow up on your earlier comments at the press conference this morning about having further discussions with the DA, with the Deputy Minister Sullivan, on any issues that may arise from the when do you expect those discussions to begin? Because I imagine with this postponement, it just made matters a bit more urgent. And is it perhaps not a good idea maybe for a more comprehensive agreement between parties on things like the budget as opposed to a clearinghouse mechanism in the GNU? Is it not maybe time for a coalition or some solid agreement on how to deal with this matter? Because this is just the first budget speech of the GNU. Thank you.
Answer that question for me.
Good afternoon, Minister. It's Lily from Mumbai. So you say that it is not necessarily the VAT issue, but rather a funding mechanism or how to fund. Is there any other issue except how to fund that there is no consensus on? And then, DG, if you could please, can you please just take us through the process, because we've never gone through this as a country. So just the process of when you start talking about the budget with the departments, with everyone, how exactly does it unfold? Because I'd like to believe that most of the information would be information that members would have been aware of, or at least departments, as it were. And how do we, going forward, handle the information in the review documents that we've been dealing with? Because I think also I would like to just say that we do think as the media that it is even in the interest of the public to allow us to elaborate as much as we can, to also avoid speculation on some of the issues, because we have been handling these documents since early this morning.
Yeah, the hand here.
Yeah. Minister Secretary Jockey, Business Day. Forgive me if I'm asking something that has already been asked, but following up on the last question, can I ask you specifically, was there consensus on the large quantity of spending increase that you penciled into the budget over the medium term? Was there any dispute over that or over any of the details? And just secondly, our procedural question, what do we do now with these documents? I mean, I'm assuming that since a large number of economists and a large number of journalists have read every word, the only thing you can really do is just publish them as a draft to avoid inside information or inside trading. But maybe are we free to go ahead and write about them as a draft, which is going to be amended on the 12th March? You can just guide us on what to do now, unless you plan to
bring them back.
And number 4.
Came from CNBC Africa. Minister, seeing that there was no consensus or agreement in your multi-party coalition government with respect to the numbers that you were supposed to present today, I have to ask, to what extent was this generally a GNU coalition budget, and what's your solution then to get your house in order?
Number 5.
我看了一下那个市场哈，我看了一下那个市场，那就是南非股市呢，在今天上午，在89200点，但是呢，因为这个预算演说取消呢，又跌到88400点，在差不多10分钟以前。那现在呢开始回升了，所以这个是有一定的对于这个市场是有短暂的是有影响的。不过呢，我们看见了在这个南非股市的指数是88543，所以在那个预算演说之前呢是89002，但是呢从下午10点多开始呢就一直开始往下，然后呢到2点的时候呢，我想应该已经有人知道这个今天下午的这个预算演说要取消了，所以那个下午10点多的时候呢，这个股市就一直开始往下走。那么跌到刚才是88400点，但是呢现在是开始回升的一个情况。
On the budget. So remove the notion, party politics, people who claim certain things. If we want to be naughty like other people are, we can mention names of say who defied, who supported, who defied, and you'll be shocked. So let's not go there. It's the cabinet ministers who did not approve the budget. as it was being tabled, and said they needed more time to engage with the issues of how do we, what the minister normally called the trade-offs. And we said because the time, and the minister has explained, the cabinet, special cabinet only started later. But the time to go to Parliament was then approaching. We then requested the Deputy President as the leader of government business to then request the Speaker to request Parliament to give us the time to agree on the budget. And it means that between now and the 12th, we are going to go back as Cabinet and have an engagement on Cabinet. In actual fact, yourselves as the media, when we have mahutas and sometimes photo sessions, you come in and see how we sit in Cabinet. You see who the people who sit closest to the chairing, what you call the presidium. So let's not go there to say, is this party vis-a-vis this party? It's not. We are all ministers of the government. We share a common concern about the impact of the budget in terms of achieving our priorities, protecting the poor. And the Treasury has the responsibility to fund the priorities. And they find mechanism, and they say, Minister was very clear, and he has been clear, 2 weeks ago he has been clear all the time the consultations have come through, to say you need to make the choices. It's a give and take. You can't have your cake and then eat it. You want to have it, you stop eating it. But if you eat it, you won't have it. So those are the choices that Cabinet, given the reality of what happened, because Treasury has the responsibility to fund the budget, Cabinet will then have to go back and say, we didn't want to make this choice. But now we think that choice that was put on the table, or this other one that's also in the table, is too difficult for us to comprehend given the situation in our country, and therefore we are willing to make this choice. That's the balancing act that we all need to do as Cabinet. And that is a decision of Cabinet. And DG, maybe you must explain the process they want, or you to explain in terms of how you get to compile the budget documents.
Starting from Joe.
Yeah. Thank you, Minister. So I'll try not to repeat every single step, but just give a broad overview. The process starts in the first few months of the new fiscal year, when we release the medium-term expenditure framework guidelines. Those guidelines go out to all departments, and based on those guidelines, departments then make submissions to the National Treasury, which gets processed through a technical process, which was previously called the MTEC, the Medium-Term Expenditure Committee. It's now called the Technical Committee on the Budget. And that process runs over the course of a few months. It then culminates in presentations to various fora where the ministers and other colleagues are involved, the Budget Council, the Budget Forum, eventually the Ministers' Committee on the Budget, and then it goes to Cabinet. And then at that stage, it then finds expression in the medium-term budget policy statement. The medium-term budget policy statement sets out, in effect, the budget priorities and the budget for the next 3 years. The budget then, which follows in February, then articulates the specific changes for that upcoming year as well as the medium term. The difference between the MTBPS and the budget is that the budget is the time where we pronounce on tax changes. So to the extent that there are tax changes and to the extent that there are additional revenue that finds expression in the fiscal framework, that additional revenue then allows often for expenditure changes. And those final set of revenue, expenditure and debt recommendations then form the basis of the budget that is tabled in February. And I think the Minister Ntshavheni covered the other issues around the process then that happens in the lead up to Cabinet. There was one other question, Minister, on the documents as well. Look, I mean, we are in uncharted territory, as you can imagine. We were talking to the governor earlier, and he said, well, in fact, the embargo has not been lifted because the embargo only gets lifted once the minister starts speaking. But of course, we cannot pretend that none of the journalists and economists who are in the lockup have not fully internalized the documents. And so I think one of the things that we will have to reflect on is actually what all of that means. And we will have to do that, I would imagine, fairly quickly.
But for now, the documents come back.
Can you take the last one? How to fund? No, there's one thing that's how to fund. Was the only difference. Say there's was the difference only how to fund. Let me put it this way. If you ask me as a Minister of Finance, I like the exercise. All right? What it does, it forces some of the things we have not been doing to discuss what Minister Mchabena has been calling for, trade-offs. In that sense, Cabinet itself is becoming engaging in the discussion of the trade-offs. It's not making a technical issues for Dr. Peters. And then when the budget is being implemented, somebody says, no, it's Treasury who cut my budget. All right? It's not, whereas a budget is a statement of Cabinet. And so what is happening, in my view, is when Cabinet become involved in the detailed discussions is useful for us in that sense. I don't think when you say Kopano, they fight over everything, coalition governments, including the allocation of resources and priorities. Where it becomes easy is a country like Germany, where your scope is limited because you've got legalized fiscal rules. In that sense, the scope for battles over budget is limited. What is this thing? Oh, there was that lady who says, is it genuine?
Just was there consensus on this debate?
No, this. Okay. Well, have we had some questions there?
No. So there are three more hands here, and then we'll take the 3 hands in Pretoria, and then we'll go to the online questions.
Kara? This is Kara.
Thanks, Minister. It's Carol Clinton. Minister, did I hear you correctly when you said that because of the market sensitivity, you did not table all the changes that were in the budget at the initial meeting? I guess that was the meeting on the 5th of February when the budget was discussed. Are you saying that the tax proposals, the proposals on tax specifically, were not raised at that meeting and that they were then revealed later? And if you could just clarify that. Then secondly, are you prepared to have a wholesale review of spending, a comprehensive spending review and a zero-based budget which examines the wasteful spending on all sorts of things in government that continues to be refunded every single year? Thanks.
Good afternoon, Minister. It's Dorazo Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. We spent some time with the various unions in civil society who handed over the memorandum to the National Treasury this afternoon. They were alluding to wanting to take to nationwide strike on the 6th of October, and then saying they should move that closer due to that 2% VAT increase. Now that the budget has been moved to the 12th of March, is there any time to be able to engage with unions and civil society who said they've tabled various suggestions that National Treasury should consider for the budget? Thank you. Hi, Minister. It's Vivi from CNBC Africa. So coming into the budget, there was a media story just reporting the SARS Commissioner, sir, saying that he was also opposed to tax increases and saying that perhaps a better way to fill the gap, as it were, was to capacitate SARS a little bit more. The number that was being reported was around 800 million rand or so in taxes there that have not been collected. that the Commissioner said could be collected if they have that capacity. Can I just ask if perhaps this was discussed at all and whether this will be considered? And also, so this time, I think next week, we are all going to be meeting again. It's one of the major launches for the G20 meetings, and you've also got businesses from some of the largest economies in the world that are going to be here. I'm not too sure if we should be feeling a little bit embarrassed potentially about this budget deadlock, but nonetheless, how do you think this deadlock on the budget right now could influence some of the conversations you may have with your global counterparts next week? Thanks.
Okay. Let's go to Pretoria for the three heads.
Afternoon, Minister. My name is Tanya. Just a couple of questions for me. I don't know if you touched on.
Can you come closer to the mic?
Hi, Sandy. Can you please speak louder? Can you bring the mic closer to you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you'll have to be slow.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, just can the Minister expand on which market-sensitive issues were inserted into the budget review today? We understand that it was the VAT increase and perhaps also negotiations on the public wage bill. And then when do consultations begin in terms of tweaking the budget, the entire budget today or next week? When do they begin? And then what happens should an agreement not be reached by April the 1st or March 12th?